Welcome to the soap that is my life.
Hi. I have a Swedish friend whom I had contact with, and we even telephoned each other over Messenger. And he made a video. He actually made a few videos. That made me think that I had to do a lot of research for myself and explain some things to my own subscribers. I'm gonna put a link up at the end of this vid to his channel for those who are interested. He has a lot of very interesting stories to tell. And it's about something that has been thrown around the Mandela community or Mandela effect community as a possible explanation to the Mandela effect. It's gonna be a two-parter. First, I'm gonna explain what it is and if it is even scientifically probable or plausible. And the second vid is gonna be how that might connect to the Mandela effect. And I'm talking about the multiverse. And I'm gonna take it in two directions here. The first direction is the first part. This video is about, of course, the multiverse. What is the multiverse? The multiverse basically is that there would exist an infinite amount of alternate realities, parallel dimensions, parallel universes. But isn't that just a thing from science fiction? Well, a lot of people these days, physicists, quantum physicists, are out there who believe in the multiverse. Alan Good is one, Michio Kaku is one, Brian Greene is one. And they all have their different takes on it. Alan Good, he has developed a theory to explain the universe, the expansion of or the beginning of the universe. It's the inflation or the expansion theory. Actually called the inflation theory, but is an expansion that went on at an enormous speed in the beginning of time, just after the Big Bang, which I already told you is wrongly pronounced because it wasn't a bang as such, it was just a... Now, this inflation theory, it says that in the first billionth of a second, the universe expanded at an infinitesimal rate to almost the universe it is today. That happened apparently 13.8 billion years ago. Now, what does this inflation theory have to do with the multiverse? At some point the inflation stops and it gives rise to what is now the universe. Except that it doesn't stop everywhere at once. And this implicates that where it doesn't stop, there are other universes being created, other pocket universes, and they would exist alongside us and they would be different from us. So inflation theory is a mathematical theory that has been proven as such by a series of satellites who did some measurements and who have kind of given empirical evidence that this inflation theory is correct. But the implications, as I told you, that there will be other universes, that hasn't been really proven yet. So if it was based on one theory, you could say, yeah, but you know, it's a mistake somewhere or whatever. Now, there's something else in our universe, because the expansion rate in the galaxy is accelerating. And for a long time, they didn't understand. So now the scientists are thinking that it is being pushed along by something called dark energy. And there are a few theories on where this energy comes from, but they wanted to measure that energy, and they had an idea how much it would be, how much this energy would measure. Except when they really measured it, it was an infinitesimal small portion of it. And they had a problem with that, because it didn't match the predictions, and because it was so small, they found out that if it would be even a little bit bigger, then the expansion, the dark matter would have pushed along all the matters at such a fast rate that there wouldn't be time for galaxies to form and for stars to form and stuff. And then they said, but why would it be so coincidental that this universe has this specific kind of dark energy? And that could only make sense if there were an enormous amount of universes around, and we happen to live in the one that has this amount of dark energy that gives, you know, the amount for life, that gives just the amount of acceleration that galaxies can still form, and that not everything coagulates in one ball, or not everything is spread out, you know, the atoms are spread out evenly as such, and there is no coagulation. So that's another theory or another aspect of the universe that kind of gives rise to the fact that multiverses exist. Now there is a third option. String theory is a theory that has been around for about the late 60s, begin 70s. It has been out of fashion for a while, and then it came up again. String theory is something that tries to blend the classical physics with the quantum physics. And they say that the universe doesn't exist of particles, but they exist of a string-like substance that vibrates, and that it is the interaction with each other that kind of defines the matter and what matter we have. Now, the implications of the mathematical formula of that, I'm not gonna do that mathematical stuff. I don't understand it myself. So the implication was that the strings would be vibrating not just in the 3 dimensions we know, but in other dimensions. And they found out that they calculated that it would have so much dimension that it was kind of impossible. And the only way to kind of make it possible, to kind of explain this, was that these dimensions weren't just dimensions, they were all alternate universes. It was a multiverse, more like bubble universes that would spring to life one on top of the other, more or less. So there are already 3 theories that have as implication that the multiverse should exist. So it isn't just a figment of science fiction, this multiverse. Now I'm gonna tell you about two other experiments. One is a think experiment and the other is a actual experiment. The think experiment is the Schrödinger's cat experiment. For those who haven't heard of it, Schrödinger was a physicist and he devised a test. It was a thinking experiment. He put a cat in a box in his thoughts. He put a gun to the cat's head, and the mechanism that would spring the gun was a nuclear element that either sprung a particle and the gun sprung, or that didn't. Since it was a closed box, you couldn't see whether the cat was dead or alive. So after a while, you had to open the box. Now, before you open that box, the cat is both dead and alive. And when you open the box, you will either find a cat that is alive or that is dead. Now, in quantum physics, they say that both options will occur, and that at the moment you open the box, a parallel world will split off where it is dead and one where it is alive. That gives the implication that there would be an infinitesimal amount of parallel universes or parallel dimensions that would be kind of the same like us, but sort of different in details. There is a second experiment that actually kind of doesn't give proof, but kind of gives you the fact that quantum physics is so mysterious, almost magical, and it's called the double slit experiment. So they take a plate, they put two slits in it, and put a plate behind it, and they shoot particles at it. And when they shoot particles at it, you should get on the second plate two straight lines from the two slits. And when you put waves through these slits, the wave will continue from the slits, will continue behind the first plate, and where the bows meet, they will interfere each other, so you'll get an interference pattern, which is where the waves are the strongest intensity you would have a line, and where they interfere each other, you won't have a line, you will have nothing. So that's the interference pattern. Now what they did was they shot electrons at it, so the electrons from atoms. So they went to the quantum physics level and they shot electrons on it, and surprise, surprise, they got a wave pattern. So an interference pattern which indicated a wave. Why could that be? Well, that could be if the electrons would go through the slits and then kind of interact with each other, and they would kind of create that interference pattern. So what they did was they took the machine and they started bombarding one electron at a time. And that should give the slits. But they still got a wave pattern. Yeah, so the electron goes through the slit. They think it then kind of splits in two, or it kind of interferes with itself, and it creates the wave pattern. And then they said, okay, we're gonna put a sensor at the entrance of the slits, and we're gonna see what happens there. And they repeated the experiment, and they didn't get a wave pattern anymore. Suddenly the wave pattern was cancelled out. It's a very strange result, and they're still breaking their heads over it. But possibly there is another universe where this camera kind of still has that wave pattern, or the sensor still has that wave pattern, and where we are now, it doesn't have that wave pattern anymore. And this is kind of the science behind what could be explained as the multiverse. So the multiverse, first of all, is not just a science fiction thing. It's possibly exists. And this is part 1 of the multiverse. In the second part, which probably comes up next Wednesday, I'm gonna tell you how the multiverse can possibly explain stuff that is happening in the Mandela effect. So I hope you like this video. If you have something to add, or if you have some comments about it, put them in the comment box. Put a like on this video. Subscribe if you haven't and you want to see more. And from my reality to yours, I hope I will see you next video. Bye.